Hey, lovies, welcome back to American History 202. This is chapter 24, and we are going to discuss America moves to the city. So, we're going to start with new immigration. Many Europeans began to immigrate to the United States. Between 1850 and 1880, more than 5 million people immigrated to the United States. Up until the 1880s, most immigrants had come from the British Isles and Western Europe. We're talking largely Germany and Ireland. Many Chinese immigrants also migrated to the United States. But in the 1880s, we see a shift. In the 1880s, new immigrants start coming to the United States. New immigrants are defined as immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe. So I want you to think Jews, Italians, Greeks, and Polish people. These new immigrants, these people from Southern and Eastern Europe, are going to create ethnic neighborhoods where their native language and religion are going to dominate. These people are seen as outsiders by nativists and others who try to help them assimilate. So let's talk about what is nativism. Nativism is definitely a problem in the United States. Nativism is defined as native-born, white, Anglo-Saxon Protestants who hold contempt for foreign-born immigrants and Catholics. The Irish and the Chinese were exceptionally bad, and the Chinese were excluded in 1882 with the Chinese Exclusion Act. Nativists are very, very anti-foreign. So by the end of the 1890s, old European immigrants, think like Western European immigrants, have become widely accepted as being American, so their stigma of being different has faded away, and now the venom and the toxicity is being aimed and targeted at those quote-unquote new immigrants of Southern and Eastern Europe, not Russia. All right, let's talk about Southern Europe uprooted. So many immigrants left Southern Europe because of various reasons. So these various reasons include overpopulation, poverty, and squalor-like conditions associated with living in poverty. Some left because of being persecuted as minorities. For example, Russia persecuted Polish Jews in the 1880s. Southern Europe grew astronomically after 1800 as a result of abundant fish and grain from America and the introduction of the potato into European diets. The shift to industrialization also led to unemployment problems for many Europeans. Many Europeans chose the United States because even in the late 19th century, the United States represented the land of opportunity. So what do we do with these new immigrants once they hit the shores of the United States? Some of them, especially in large urban cities like Chicago, are going to be met with help from settlement houses. Settlement houses are houses in immigrant neighborhoods run by native-born women. These settlement houses offer housing, food, education, childcare, and cultural activities for people who have just moved to the United States. The settlement houses are going to become centers of women's activism and social reform. For example, we have the women of Hull House, Hull, Hull House. They're led by Jane Addams. The Hull House lobbied for an Illinois anti-sweatshop law that protected women workers and prohibited child labor. Let's explore Jane Addams a little more. That sounded real robotic, didn't it? Let's explore Jane Addams a little more. Jane Addams was dedicated to helping the urban masses. She established Hull House, which was a prominent settlement house in the United States. She's a reformer who spoke out against war and poverty. She won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1931. Jane Addams offered instruction in English, counseling to help new immigrants, and she even offered childcare for working mothers. Remember, her whole house lobbied for the anti-sweatshop law that protected women workers and prohibited child labor in 1839 Illinois. In previous chapters, well, we did not talk about it because I skipped. I don't think I've covered it yet. But just know that prior to like this era, women went to work out of necessity. So there's this concept called separate spheres. It's an English concept. It's a Victorian concept called separate spheres. And it basically asserts that women have a certain role. So the role of the woman is to be in the home. She's to raise the kid. She's supposed to make the house a home. Like that's her traditional role. And the male is supposed to go to work. So women of this era who are working out of necessity. So the types of jobs that are going to be available to them is going to be dependent upon their race, ethnicity, and class. The employment for wives and mothers is basically seen as taboo because, again, I just told you that Victorian concept of separate spheres asserts that women should remain in the household and just take care of the kids. So most women who work are single. Again, women who are working during this era are working out of necessity. So most of these women are single. Black women who work are usually going to hold jobs as domestics. So they're going to do like house labor things. Whereas white women are going to be kind of geared or steered into white collar jobs like social workers, secretaries, telephone operators, are usually going to be reserved for white native-born women. Immigrant women tend to work in a certain industry. For example, Jewish women oftentimes work in garment trades. This is let's go ahead and narrow the welcome mat and then we'll move to micro lecture 2. So let's narrow this welcome mat, which basically means the United States climate is becoming very anti-foreign during this era. So anti-foreignism or nativism is going to target Irish and German immigrants of the 1840s and 50s initially. But then it hits a resurgence when they start attacking new immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe in the 1880s. Nativists saw the Southern and Eastern Europeans as being culturally and religiously inferior. Nativists feared their fertility because they thought that the new immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe would take over because these new immigrants had such high fertility rates and high birth rates. Nativists thought that they would have more babies and eventually they would become the majority and outvote the nativist. Even worse, the nativists feared that these new immigrants would have babies with Anglo-Saxons. Many nativists blamed immigrants for the downfall of urban government and low wages that were associated with industry. Consequently, we see these anti-foreign and nativist groups emerge like the American Protective Association. The American Protective Association encouraged members to vote against Roman Catholic candidates for office. Even Congress is going to get in on the narrowing of the welcoming mat for immigrants. Congress, we know, started to restrict immigration as early as 1882 with the Chinese Exclusion Act. Remember, the Chinese Exclusion Act said that no more Chinese people were allowed to immigrate into the United States until 1943, but it did not force the Chinese people who were already living in the United States to exit the United States. The Congress is also going to outlaw the immigration of criminals, convicts, and beggars. Later, we see federal laws that outlaw immigration of insane people, polygamists, prostitutes, alcoholics, and even people with infectious diseases. Then, in 1885, Congress supported organized labor when it outlawed the importation of foreign workers under contract for substandard wages. So, lovies, this is the conclusion of Chapter 24, America Moves to the City, Micro Lecture, Part 1E, which is Mandarin. All right, lovies, hope you're having a great day. I'll see you soon for Micro Lecture 2. Bye.